Good morning everyone, I'm the presenter of Group 1. Today, I would like to present about my group assignment, Case Study 20, Fuzzy Logic Control in Client Asset Allocation as an Investment Advisory Model. Before we jump into Case Study 20, let us go through some background. Now, what is asset allocation? Asset allocation is an investment management strategy where the investor's portfolio can be divided into various asset classes like stocks, bonds, cash equivalents, and etc. The aim for asset allocation is to optimize returns while managing the risk. So in 1952, Harry Markowitz has proposed a modern portfolio theory, and in short MPT, where the concept of this theory is talk about the optimal portfolio that contains all risk assets in proportion to their market value. While it is a useful theory, but it has some limitation as well. MPT is difficult in estimating the expected return, risk, and correlations of different assets. Therefore, there is a vagueness and uncertainty in the estimation, especially investor risk tolerance. Since it is very hard to accurately estimate the risk and growth, it is suggested to apply the concept of fuzzy logic. Since there is uncertainty in asset allocation, we have done a literature review in two parts. First is demographic characteristic on risk investment. Second is fuzzy logic and asset allocation model. So in summary, for demographic characteristic, the past research tells us that the demographic features can affect the investment strategy. So in this study, we consider age of the client or investor as a factor that affects the asset allocation. Next, the literature review of fuzzy logic and asset allocation model shows that fuzzy logic control can really be used to formulate an asset allocation model. So based on the literature review, various studies have explored the use of fuzzy logic in asset allocation, considering the factors such as demographic characteristics, risk tolerance, and investors' risk preference. Therefore, in this assignment, we consider age and risk tolerance of the investor as the linguistic input variables. And for the sake of simplicity, the output variables involves only savings, income, and growth. Growth which can also be interpreted as equity. So, we can ask ourselves some questions derived from literature review. How do we optimize client asset allocation in a dynamic financial market? How to solve asset allocation problem that involves uncertainty and vagueness in the client's risk profile? And lastly, how to recommend asset allocation for a client who age 25 and risk tolerance level of 45. That's an application. To answer these questions, we can implement these research objectives. First is to design a model that is using fuzzy logic control system. Second, find the asset allocation model for a client who age 25 with risk tolerance level of 45 using the constructed model. To achieve these objectives, we can first apply fuzzification, then use inference rule and decision table, rule evaluation, aggregation, and lastly, defuzzification. So, first step is fuzzification. First, we have age and risk as input variables, saving, income, and growth as output variables. Then we define the domain and range for the variables from 0 to 100. Then, experts need to evaluate the degrees of each term of the linguistic variable. But in this assignment, we will use the example from Case Study 20. From the diagrams, we can then construct membership functions. Okay, step 1 is finished. Next step is define inference rule and decision table. These inference rules are defined by experts, and the informations are summarized in the form of decision table as shown in the slide. For example, a young client with low risk tolerance should have a medium saving, medium income, and medium growth. After that, we perform group evaluation. Now, it is given that the client's age is 25 years old and the risk tolerance level is 45 from the scale from 0 to 100. So we substitute this value, we can obtain the fuzzy reading inputs. After that, we need to perform aggregation using a technique called firing. It is an application of a control rule. So we can use the strength of 4 rule to find alpha cut's value. So the decision table for each control output are presented in this table. And the intersection of the membership functions of the output variables and the alpha cuts from the firing 4 rules are actually the control output variables. To aggregate the control outputs, the aggregation of the control outputs will be calculated based on the following formulas. Next, from the graphs, the solid lines are the graphs for the control outputs. Okay, now, the final step is defuzzification. We use the high defuzzification method to calculate the centroid, also known as the crease value for the reference. So we got these answers. But these values are not in percentages. Asset allocation model often tell us that how much of the percentage of our asset are distributed. So we use the weightage formula. First, sum up those assets, then calculate the percentage of asset allocations. Eventually, we got the percentages like this. In conclusion, fuzzy logic control is used to design the client asset allocation model in this assignment. It is able to advise clients on the distribution of different types of the assets. And we found that if a client's age is 25 years old, with 45 risk tolerance level, it is advised that the asset allocation is 13% in savings, 38% in income, and 49% in growth. But of course, the method used in this assignment has some limitations as well, so it requires future work. It is suggested that we can incorporate more factors that affect the client's risk tolerance and return expectation, since the factors are not only the age and the risk tolerance level. Also, for the future work, it is suggested that to develop a dynamic model that can adapt the changing of the market environment. And maybe we can create a program or software where we can just key in the input values and the output results will be shown directly. It is also suggested to extend the model to include other asset classes, not only savings, income, and growth, but also other classes like stocks, bonds, etc. And that is the end of this presentation. Here are the references. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new.